Okie dokie. So there was a lot of questions about Ruby 3, which makes sense.
Yeah, I can help it.
Yeah. Someone asked just static typing, question mark. So there's like multiple questions there. I think one could be, are you serious? So are you serious about static typing?
It's up to the definition of seriousness.
I like it. I like it. You've parsed my parse. Okay, that's good. So you think it's an interesting idea. Would that be fair to say? But if it doesn't pan out, then it might not happen. Does that seem about right? Okay.
So we have to experiment.
Yeah, we have to do some experimenting. I thought it was very interesting watching you kind of describe it, talk about the fact that the, I guess, tell me more about how you see, so one of your slides, you gave an example of something that calls toInt on that. So what's the kind of, if you wanted to have that be as a static type, what would the type you be? Okay, this would be really easy if I had code. Describing code in words always sucks. So you have a method that takes x and inside the method it does x.toInt. What type do you add to x in the declaration, in your mind?
You know, I expect x to be responsible to the method toInt.
Okay.
So that kind of soft typing, the type is described by the set of methods.
But are you thinking of it sort of like Go's interfaces, where you basically have you have a thing that says like you wouldn't say that x is a fixed num because you don't really care. You just need to be something that has toInt.
Yeah.
And so would you define that as a separate, like would you define that as a module that just has one method in it, or there'd be some construct where you would describe the signature you want? Is that what you're thinking?
Yeah, but it was created inside of the compiler, so
sure.
It will never be disclosed.
Oh, okay. So I got you. Okay. So it would be automatically checked in that particular case. So something else would say, oh, I see that you're calling toInt on x, so let me go ahead and check to make sure that actually toInt is defined in that particular case. Yeah. So are you thinking that you would actually add the programmer? Would the programmer actually add type declarations?
No.
Or are you thinking that you'd do more sort of type inference in that case?
Yeah, type inference.
Okay.
Kind of thing.
Oh, interesting.
And the compiler may give information about their guess. So that
this is only because we're on video. There you go.
So that we can so that IDE can use that info to the autocomplete or something.
Okay. Are you thinking? So in the case of type inference, are you thinking that it would sort of bubble back out as well? So for instance, is the like if I pass that x as an argument to something else, does the need for the toInt kind of bubble back up the call stack?
Yeah. So
okay. Interesting. All right.
So that kind of propagation will tell the compiler about the information or our expectation to the type of the variable x.
But you're thinking of it mostly as how do I say this? Responds to kind of conformance, right? Not so much like runtime performance. You're really just thinking of it as being able to, when you load in a Ruby file, having the compiler at that time say, hey, you passed this thing here, that's never going to work out. So trying to eliminate a method missing kind of call. Okay, cool. That definitely kind of clears it up for me. We had a question of, it seems like Ruby 3.0 would be a good time to remove things if we're adding other things as well, if we're kind of mixing it up. What kind of things, do you have anything in mind that maybe that you'd want to remove?
Yeah, probably some of the Perl inherited weird variables, like a dollar something.
So getting rid of more Perlisms,
from the language. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm thinking about that, but I'm not sure yet.
Interesting.
Just because I don't want that kind of the huge compatibility gap between, for example, between the 1.8 and 1.9. So the Ruby 2.0 was a kind of successful just because it's dropping the replacement to 1.9. So that kind of things should be happen in Ruby 3.0 as well.
Okay.
But I'm not sure yet.
I mean, it's definitely that's a hard path to navigate. Not knocking anybody here, but it seems like that's a path that, like, for instance, Python from 2 to 3 had a really hard time navigating, you know, both removing some things and changing the way some other things worked. So it seems like it's this tightrope that you have to walk.
Yeah.
Okay. My computer keeps locking itself. That's really awkward. Okay. What about sort of the standard library? I know that one of the things that for years it's been to try and make sure that you have a maintainer for certain things inside the standard library. And some stuff has a maintainer and some stuff is finished. Do you think Ruby 3.0 may be a time to pull some of that stuff in that isn't really being worked on out of the standard library?
Yeah, we are under the process of the gamifying some of the standard library, and in the age of early stage of 1.8, so we added a bunch of things into the standard library just because it's kind of like a battery included policy. And back then we didn't have Ruby gems yet, so yeah, we had, but it's not that mainstream. And so we have to take that kind of that battery included policy.
Sure.
But the times passed, and the maintainers are gone, and some lose interest, and there's some the standard library is left unmaintained or something like that. So we are under the gradual process of removing them, actually the gamifying them, so that you can update the part of the standard library without upgrading whole systems.
Sure.
Yeah. So it will happen maybe in the Ruby 2.0 era or something.
Okay. Interesting. Yeah, I mean, the batteries included is totally there, but it seems like maybe some of the standard library is sort of like batteries that are such a weird format that nothing uses them anymore. You know, so yeah, that was a good joke, everybody. There you go. I added this, and then I saw that someone else asked it as well. We've talked about, I think, the last couple of years about the idea of, again, we're just talking about sort of new features in Ruby 3.0 and that kind of thing. I think you had described the idea of maybe it would be good to add some kind of thread abstraction, either be an actor or something like that. Have you thought about that lately at all?
We are still thinking about that.
Okay.
I have an opinion and ideas, and the Koichi has an opinion and ideas, and we are not yet have any conclusion yet.
Ah, okay, okay. So, but you're still pro that. You're still in favor of it, or you're still not sure?
Yeah, we agree to add some kind of the higher level of abstraction to the concurrency, but the concurrent idea are different.
Okay. All right. It seems like in the last year or so, the idea of like what the GIL should be and that kind of thing has sort of changed, that your opinions of it have changed a little bit. You want to maybe talk about that and what you kind of, how you got to your new thinking about the GIL?
Go?
No, GIL. Like the global interpreter lock, the GVL.
The GIL.
Yeah. We can talk about Go too if you want, but that's a different topic.
Yeah, so many people complained about the GIL, I mean.
Now I'm mixing you up.
Yeah, I'm confusing. GIL. Okay, GIL.
Yeah.
So many people complain about the GIL, but so the GIL is there to protect you,
right?
Not us. So to prove that, so I asked Nobu to to prepare the compiler option to turn off the GIL in compile time so that you can see what would happen without GIL.
Okay.
Yeah, and I'll tell you, it is quite difficult to write thread-safe program without GIL.
It's true.
Yeah. So in few days, so you can have the Ruby interpreter, the virtual machine without GIL, so that you can see what would happen.
So, but do you feel like it's the right? Do you how should I put this? The GIL is super useful because it's hard to write a thread-safe program.
Yeah.
So do you see as maybe the internals of Ruby, of C Ruby get more thread-safe? Do you see a time where maybe there's the ability to say, you know what, this chunk of Ruby code I know is thread-safe. Go ahead and run it without the GIL. It's sort of that flexible approach? Or is that scary?
Sure. Yeah, that is pretty scary. Yeah. Right now the part of the Ruby which is thread safe is run without GIL. For example, the calling system calls and like a file I/O or something like that. So that part is run without GIL just because it's thread safe.
Yeah.
So the right now many part is running without GIL, but but still people complain. Just because. Yeah.
Well, I mean, I think that it's a topic that people love to discuss. I think because it's a hard problem to figuring out how to solve. I think that.
So I believe we need some kind of the higher abstraction. So the current abstraction thread is too primitive, so that the human being cannot handle that abstraction pretty well without GIL.
Sure.
Yeah, maybe it's too early for us.
Maybe how about this idea? I'm just throwing out an idea here. A mRuby embedded inside CRuby, where you have actors that are running mRuby on their own heap, so they're totally isolated from each other, and CRuby is the coordinator. What do you think about that idea?
Yeah, actually, there's a guy who wrote the extension that embeds mRuby already. So Ruby in Ruby.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And shoot.
And then maybe some smart guy playing on that extension will write some kind of the higher abstraction.
Challenge accepted. Let's see. We have the traditional question that comes up every year, and it's important that you get your chance to discuss it again. Will Ruby 3.0 have macros?
No.
Well, you heard it here first. Definitely no.
Okay.
But
okay. Short answer is no. A slightly longer answer is no way.
That's so good. We had a question of when, if at all, you think Ruby core would move development to Git. You have been using Git for like 10 years now.
Yeah.
So do you think that that's going to happen for Ruby core?
I'm not sure. So just as I explained last year, so the core development team are highly dependent on the scripts written around the subversion. So I have to discuss with the team, but we received many pull requests and issues on the GitHub.
I saw that Nobu uses them.
Yeah. So if the majority of the team members agreed, so we can move on to the GitHub. There's possibility we will move on to GitHub very soon.
Cool.
But we have to discuss first. So the nearest developers meeting will be held in a week or two or something. So we will discuss there.
Okay. Since I mentioned it, and people probably don't know this, I know it because we've been friends for a long time, but tell us a little bit about how you use Git personally on your own machine. Because I think that it's a fascinating, because I've seen you work before, and you have like, you used to use Quilt, I think. Did you use Quilt before?
Yeah, I used the tool named the StackGit.
Oh, StackGit.
Yeah, which is kind of like a Git, the tool on top of the Git, so that just works as a quail.
Yeah.
And I can stack this. It's kind of like a Git stash.
Yeah.
But we can name it. We can rename it. We can change the order of the stacking. That's quite neat too. And
So,
it's written in Python.
yeah. Do you still use StackGit?
Sometimes.
Okay.
Yeah, and for development of mRuby, so I use the raw Git.
Yeah, just
Just
Git mainline. Because I know a lot of the features of StackGit got put into normal Git after a while, as I recall, too. So.
Yeah, the stash was weak back then. So yeah, right now we don't need to use StackGit any longer.
I asked because I remember, oh man, what year was that? Whenever we were at a conference in Copenhagen. Remember that conference?
Copenhagen, the jail.
No. It was like Ruby Fools, I think, or something like
Ruby
that.
Fool, yeah.
I remember seeing you work and been like, I thought you were on Subversion. What are you doing with all these Git commands? I was kind of like shoulder surfing you at that time. Anyway, I always thought that was fascinating, hearing about people's development practices, like how they manage their own workflow on their own machine is always super interesting because everybody has a slightly different way of doing it.
Yeah, even though we have the central repository in Subversion, so probably most of the developers use Git as their local environment.
So everybody uses Git, but the upstream is Subversion. Nice. I think this developer meeting is going to go well.
Yeah, the most things I missed in Git is kind of like the numberized revisions.
I can show you how to get. It's called git log pipe wc-l. There you go. You get a number back every single time, and it just goes up. It only goes up.
Okay. I will try to use that.
Okay. So let's see. We are at about 3:30. So we've got half an hour, 20 minutes left or so. So if you have questions, we're going to go through. I have a whole bunch more questions. I'm just sort of prepping you here. If you have questions that you want to ask Matz, let's go ahead and have people line up sort of even with our lovely cameraman here in the aisle here. And then as however many people I see line up, we'll figure out when we're going to get to you. So that's your cue if you really want to do it. So let's see. There's some other good questions. Someone wanted to know how I pronounce your name. I wonder why. But I know how to pronounce it correctly, so screw you. That was a question for me, evidently. Have there ever been any Ruby behaviors that have really surprised you? You've been working with the language for almost 20 years now. You sit down to write a program, be it in mRuby or wherever that you write, and you're like, oh, I forgot that it worked like this. Like features you add in like long ago, and you're like, it'd be really nice if we had this feature. Oh, I wrote it a long time ago. Does that happen all that often?
Yeah, sometimes. And unfortunately, I don't remember that. I forget soon after that.
Yeah.
But definitely I had. Occasionally.
Does it feel like, it's been a long time now and you've got so many people who've worked on the language. Does it feel, it has the feel of sort of almost an organic, like it's its own thing, like Ruby and it being its own thing, like it's got all these behaviors, it's got all these things that nobody knows all of it anymore, and so it's got all these things that it knows only of itself.
Yeah, nobody not, but probably Nobu.
But yeah, we should just maybe we should rename Ruby to Nobu.
As in Japanese restaurant?
I wasn't thinking that Nobu. Yes. Oh, questions. Okay. Did we end up getting that extra mic? Oh, Mike Gods. Oh, the deities of loud speakingness, bequeath me your wand. Wand? Yeah, wand. Scepter? Oh, and it's just lowly Marty. Okay, we've got a question. Go ahead.
Hi.
Do you ever like get tired of writing Ruby in C and want to write Ruby in Ruby?
Do you have you so this is a little known fact. Actually, it's not anymore. But Matz is a C programmer.
Yeah.
I don't know if you all knew that.
I agree
Matz is a C programmer. So have you gotten bored of writing in C at this point?
Not really. I have been a C programmer for, I don't know, 20-something years, maybe 30 years.
Are you using C99? Have you moved up? Are you keeping up with the C?
Yeah, I recently started using C99. Yeah, if you knew the old Ruby source code,
I do.
Yeah, Ruby has been used with the very old KNR style for a long time.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I was so conservative.
Well, it's good to you're moved up to C99. The sky's the limit at this point, right?
Yeah, actually, recently I worked on mRuby, and it's written in C99.
Okay.
The problem is the MSVC does not understand C99 at all.
Oh, I forgot about that.
Yeah, so I have to support them.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I cannot move fully onto the C99 yet.
You could just write it. You know, VCC loves C++. You could just write it in C++. How about that?
I actually, okay, let me clear. I like C++ as a language.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's too huge though, but I like that. But you know, writing the object-oriented programming language in object-oriented programming language is kind of confusing for my brain.
Yeah. No, I agree. I haven't done it before. I agree.
Yeah. So two object system in one. That's insane.
It's sort of like writing a garbage collector in a language that already has a garbage collector. It kind of you're like, well, I don't know where I am anymore. That's also weird. I suggest you all do that at some point in time, just to kind of twist your brain. But
yeah, for the same reason, I don't write Ruby the core Ruby in Ruby.
Yeah.
So the core is written in C, and you know, so some part of the standard library is written in Ruby, and yeah, that's okay. But for core, so it should be written in the other programming language, the fundamental, the primitive programming language.
Gotcha. Okay.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you.
So when you're looking into the future of threading for Ruby, if you go beyond Ruby 3.0 and just think really long-term vision, what kind of threading model are you hoping to approach for Ruby?
Actually, I found of some kind of the actor model, and Koichi has different idea, and I'm not sure which one is right yet.
What is Koichi's idea?
It's kind of Koichi's idea is that the objects to belong to the thread or the concurrent task that create that object. So every operation need to have the object created by that thread. So
would it be like
kind of like isolation?
Yeah, would it be like a heap per thread then? Okay.
Yeah, you can reference, but you cannot process that without migrating the possession.
Would it be like having like the write barrier would check that, like you're touching someone else's object, bad boy, and it would just slap your hand
that kind
of
stuff.
Oh, I like it.
I guess the
All right,
hand
so
Would
slap,
that mean
okay.
a move to immutability then? If you're going to follow that second model, would there be kind of more of a move towards immutability?
Yeah, from other thread, objects will be seen as immutable, but the thread with that possess the object, you can modify.
I like it. It's sort of you have your own sandbox and you can lend an object out to somebody, but they can't change it, kind of thing.
That kind of thing.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So as a C programmer, have you looked at Rust? I know you look at a lot of languages. I'm curious what you think of Rust and thoughts on that?
I saw Rust, and it's quite a neat combination of the system programming language and the functional programming language. And but in comparison, yeah. But actually, I confess I prefer Go for its simplicity.
Well, there you go. Ha ha, Nathan.
Hi.
Hi.
Have you or the Ruby core team ever considered a change to Ruby syntax to basically explicitly state a method should return nil or have no return value? I've encountered a lot of really strange bugs and misbehaviors because people overload a method and make it return a value where it was explicitly expected to return none. Just wondering your thoughts on that.
Yeah, I haven't think about that, but it's quite an interesting input.
What would that look like? Like, you want to say, do you want to annotate the type of the return, or you want to annotate that there is a return?
This is actually the problem I just fell into recently. Once you say that, yes, this should be return nil every time, or this should return void every time, you've put very weird static typing in the Ruby. So like, maybe that doesn't work. Pretty much my thought was saying like this method should never return anything, and if it does return something, either raise an error or just discard it altogether. But that just starts you down a very bizarre path. So
yeah, mark method to explicitly specify the method to return nothing or something like that.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I mean, I guess you could. I mean, it'd have to return something. Basically, you're saying that the return value be disregarded, and it would always return nil at that point. Because I mean, you have to have. In order for Ruby to continue to be Ruby, every method has to return something. I mean, there's just otherwise everything breaks. The world just collapses around you, and if that's not true.
Yeah, but he's proposing the introducing the method to return nothing.
Yeah, just like saying disregard. I don't know. That seems strange. I mean,
or just nil every time, regardless of what.
Why not just put return in the code?
You'd think that would be easy enough. I've encountered situations where people forget that.
Yeah, for some people, return nil is different from return void.
Yeah, but you'd have to add an extra type then. You'd have to add like a void type. You have to have a void thing object that could be passed around and reasoned about and be exploded upon if it ever got used, I guess.
Yeah.
I mean, what's funny is CRuby has that thing. You just can't access it. It's basically quundef.
Yeah.
I mean, that's effectively
that's
is void.
Effectively bad boy.
Yeah.
you should not return that.
There's this.
You should not. The quundef should not be referenced.
Yeah. There's these 4 special values inside the interpreter: true, false, nil, and quundef. And quundef is just sort of special cased everywhere. It's like anywhere there's never supposed to be a value.
Yeah,
it's
that value should not be disclosed to the Ruby world.
Yeah, right. So that would that's
basically very, very secret value.
Yeah. The secret's out, buddy.
All right, thank you.
Thanks.
Yeah, but that idea is kind of interesting input. So let me think about that. And and then you can submit your proposal.
We look for your pull request.
Yeah.
I recently discovered unbound methods, which I'm sure you're familiar with, but for other people, it's a method that...
Could you speak slowly?
Oh, sorry,
I'm a Japanese speaker.
Right.
I didn't get it either, so it's not just you.
I recently discovered unbound methods.
Unbound methods?
Unbound methods.
Unbound methods.
We're getting this weird echo. That's the other reason it's hard to hear you.
And so basically, you can have a method that is now, as it sounds, unbound, but can't be called, and can only be called once you reattach it to some other object, which can be the original object or another object, as long as it's the same class or a subclass. Why is that in there? And how could why would one use that?
Just because the unbound method is retrieved from the class. The class is not an object. Actually, a class is object, but the class is not an instance of that class. So by retrieving the method from class, there's a method without any instance. So you cannot call the method with an object attached. Right. So that was the reason for the unbound method, and you have to bind it before calling it.
Did the change go in this is years ago, Aaron Patterson was working on this change, that allows you to rebind a unbound method that's implemented in Ruby to any class. Do you remember that change?
Yeah,
Did that go in? Or does when you try to bind an unbound method, does it still make sure that it's that the object that's getting the binding is an ancestor of where the unbound method was created?
Yeah.
It does. It still checks. Because there was this whole, at one point, we played around with like removing the check. So you could take an object, you could take a method from some random class and bind it to some other random object and be able to call it in. Call it over there.
Now that's possible, I think.
Okay.
My question was actually if there's like a general use case that was imagined for unbound methods.
Use case.
Use case.
That's a good question. It's the bind unbound things is there to experiment about the object system. So by playing with them, so you can understand more deeply about the Ruby's object system. I think that's the whole reason.
I'll give you an example. You can use it to model very interesting kinds of dispatch. So like let's say you want to set it up so you have a hash of say string keys and the values are unbound methods. And it's say an HTTP router or something like that. You could get a request object from something else, and then you could just look up inside the hash to get an unbound method, bind it to the request, and then call it. So that way, you actually get the methods as actual objects separately. Now, you could use send and stuff like that, but it's just a different way of being able to glue the thing that you want to call on to the actual receiver.
Yeah, and it's actually the Python object system does.
Yeah, that's right.
Hi, boss.
Are you going to give me a question?
Yeah.
Did you want to answer a question, Koichi?
You want to answer the question.
So my question is, what is the new feature, big feature on Ruby 2.3?
What's the
Ruby 2.3?
Yeah.
So let's think about it after we release Ruby 2.2.
Any idea?
So it should be it should be faster. It should be more feature rich, and it should be more stable, and it should be more interesting.
Is Koichi trying to get you to commit to like doing a JIT in Ruby 2.3 or something?
It's up to him.
I'll use that as a segue. Have you, especially since Koichi is standing here with the mic, I know that I'm not sure if it was you, Koichi, or you, Matz, who talked about like maybe Ruby needs a JIT, and what would that look like? Have you guys talked about that much?
And the very interesting episode is Ruby. The transition to Ruby 1.8 to 1.9 was succeeded just because we had new virtual machine, and we have gained a huge performance boost, and at the same time the compatibility gap. But on the other hand, in contrast, the Python 3 had a very consistent syntax improvement, but no performance gain. So for mere users, so there's no gain.
Sure.
So the Python 3 has very big trouble to migrate communication. I mean community. So if I introduce JIT, so it will be same to it should be at the same timing to making something incompatible.
The carrot and the stick, if you will.
Yeah.
Python 2 to 3 just had a stick that people whipped themselves with in order to do it, I guess. And
yeah.
Any other questions, Koichi? No? Okay.
It's kind of like a Aesop, like a sun and the north wind.
Yeah,
something.
absolutely.
Oh, that's yours.
The hat is back to its rightful owner.
Have you thought about giving us the ability to define custom falsy methods or custom falsy objects?
Yeah, I have to think about that, and I abandoned that idea.
Don't do it. Don't do it.
Mostly because it's the Boolean check, like the conditional check, happens so many times, and that kind of hook will slow down the language. And even now, people complain about the Ruby's slowness. even after the introduce a new virtual machine. So I don't want to introduce that kind of things to make the language even slower. That's one reason. And the second reason is in some cases we kind of have the try-value logic, like a true, false, nil, or something like that. So having that kind of say two-ball method would hinder that kind of style. So for those reasons, I'm not going to introduce that kind of hook.
Please don't. Please don't do it.
Hey.
Hello.
Hey.
Hi.
I have two questions.
Okay. You're the last one in line, so you get to monopolize the mic.
All right. So I guess they're both for features that I was thinking about or I would like, but I don't know how to do it. So one is, it would be nice if we had, I guess, a first-class way to do delegation. And what I mean, I'll explain what I mean by that. So when you, a lot of times in Rails, we define delegate methods that all they do is just delegate that same method off to a different object. But we still have to pay a price for that intermediate defined method. Is there a way we could optimize that out? Could we get rid of that extra method call in between? Okay, great.
Yeah, submit the idea to the Redmine, so we can discuss. So that we can discuss.
All right. So
Yeah.
the other one I'm wondering.
Maybe we can implement that by writing some kind of C extension, probably.
I was thinking either a C extension or possibly you could tell at compile time that all you're doing is just passing through to the next one,
I don't know.
eliminate. Maybe it's a question for Koichi. I don't know.
Use unbound method.
Use an unbound
Yeah,
method.
unfortunately, unbound method is so slow.
I guess so. The other question I was wondering about is, could we add a way, maybe syntax for getting access to methods easier? So for example, in Scheme, I can refer to a function just by its name. So when I want to map over something, I just say, all right, call this function. But when I use map in Ruby, in order to do the same thing, I have to go, okay, block, and then actually call that, or I have to say okay, method colon method name, and then cast it to a proc, and then pass it into map. It seems really cumbersome.
Yeah, I actually like the idea of having the special notation to retrieve the method from object or maybe from class. But I think we run out of the characters.
Slash is still available.
No, you could start using emoji.
Emojis.
Come on.
Don't,
Aaron, I thought that we were saving all the emoji for your language.
Yes. There's
Which
only
one
one
do you
emoji
prefer?
in my
Poop?
language, the poo.
Yeah, the poo lang. Yes.
so,
Hi.
Hi.
Yep.
I also have two questions. So the first question is, how do we get involved with the whole soft typing paradigm? And the second, what is your take on the different Ruby interpreters that are currently happening out there?
It's
So
quite
the first one
different.
was
What kind
what
of...
how,
The first
how did
question-
he get involved with soft typing? Is that what you asked?
Yeah.
Okay.
Right now we have only a vague idea, so in the near future we are going to have some kind of the static analysis tools, so maybe based.
So, what did you see any other languages that had soft typing that you liked, or read anything? Are there any systems out there that you said, oh well, they've got gradual typing? That's a good example for us to kind of pull from.
Yeah, some language like a strong talk has the gradual and the soft typing, and there's several research paper on the soft typing, and recently Facebook released the tool named the Flow, which is some kind of static analysis tool on top for JavaScript, and. Interestingly, the lead developer was used to research on soft typing on Ruby.
And then he got a job at Facebook. And
Yeah,
it all
yeah,
went
yeah.
PHP
Yeah.
from then on out.
That's quite interesting. So that we have some kind of preceding research. So we have to survey first. So actually, soon after that, I gave the keynote. So several people contact me about you have this paper, you have to check out this paper or that. So this is quite interesting. So I have to tons of paper to survey. So let's start from
Lots
that.
of reading for the holidays.
Yeah, yeah. In the near future, we will start working on some kind of the static analysis tool. So maybe based on our sense or something. But so after I release it on say GitHub, so I will welcome the pull request and the suggestions.
And your other question was all about the other Ruby implementations and VMs and stuff like that. What does he think of them?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
What do you think of other Ruby compilers?
How do you feel about Rubinius and JRuby?
Yeah, Rubinius is great. And yeah, actually,
did you get to the JRuby 9000 talk this year?
No, I missed that.
Okay.
But I pretty respect the effort and the accomplishment that they did, and we are working together to make the community better. So.
Yeah. Do you feel like, one thing on this that I thought was interesting is when you started mRuby, which it's been a few years now, it kind of said, I think, to everyone that like, hey, we can build these more interesting Ruby implementations, Ruby VMs that are useful in various different contexts, right? mRuby is really good it was built for embedding on embedded hardware and that kind of thing. And JRuby can fit into the really nice Java ecosystem, and Rubinius tries to bring a lot of performance to it. So they can all have their own little niche and happily coexist, sort of. That was at least my optimistic way of looking at it, if you will.
Yeah, unlike say 10, 15 years ago, so the Ruby world is getting bigger and bigger. So that we have each implementation has each niche to live in, so that we can live happily together.
Great. All right.
All right. Thanks.
Sure. All right. I think we're probably going to call it now. Give it up for Matz. Thanks so much.
Thank you.